بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. In the name of God, the merciful, the beneficent, all prayer and praise is due to the Prophet Muhammad and his holy household. In chapter 60, verse number 8, the Quran reads, Allah does not forbid you respecting those who have not made war against you on the count of your religion and have not driven you out of your homes, that you should show them kindness and deal with them justly. Surely Allah loves those who are just. However, in the Arabic verse, the word that is used here, and tabarruhum wa tuqsitu ilayhim. Tabarruhum means that you be kind to them. Wa tuqsitu meaning that you treat them fairly, with equity and justice, meaning that you are good to them. And as Amirul Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, he says people are of two types, either your brother in faith or your equal in humanity. Now this brings us, due to the celebrations that we are celebrating, to the concept of Christmas, New Year's, these celebrations that are celebrated by our brothers and sisters from the Christian faith, from the Jewish faith, these celebrations that are celebrated. What is our standpoint? Can we and can we not join in? Let me say first and foremost clearly, there is no issue with wishing them joy and happiness, to the non-Muslims that is. Being good to them, being kind to them, celebrating their celebrations, showing happiness for their celebrations. However, there are things to consider, things such as ideological effects, ethical effects, things that might affect your mannerisms, and things that might affect your Islamic identity. Let's talk about this, and then we'll go into depth later on as to things like the Christmas tree and what have you. Number one is ideologically. If that celebration has a negative ideological on me as a Muslim, obviously my job is to protect my ideology and the ideology of my children and my family, my immediate family or my extended family. Therefore, if joining in these celebrations has a negative ideological effect on you, whether today or in 30 years, whether your generation or the generation that follows, then I should be aware. I should be very aware, and I should heed that warning. Because I want my kids to grow up like me. I want my kids to grow up on the path of Islam, on the righteous path of Islam, that is. Therefore, if joining these celebrations has an ideological effect, a negative ideological effect, then I cannot join them. By definition, I cannot join them if they have a negative ideological effect on me, on my kids. Or if I am boasting that religion. If I'm calling for people to come and join that religion, for example, then I have committed haram, because my job is to what? Is to be a Muslim and to uphold Islam and to be steadfast in my Islam and to call to my Islam. We don't need people to be Muslim. That's not our job. However, at the same time, I shouldn't call people, or I should not boast other religions. Ideologically, that's what we should worry about. Secondly is the ideological effect that this celebration might have on our children. I have a child. If celebrating these holidays instills within the child an ideological effect that goes against Islam, then it becomes haram by extension. Or it should not be, I should not join it by extension of the fear of the ideological effect it might have on my children. When it comes to mannerisms or ethical issues, certain celebrations go against your ethical and moral belief. In what sense? For example, ensuring that you joining these celebrations does not take a part, or that you do not play a part in a practice that contradicts Islamic mannerisms or Islamic rulings, such as going to a party where alcohol is being served, sitting at a dining table where alcohol is being served, joining in eating food that might have haram meat in it, for example, or meat that has not been slaughtered in an Islamic way, being in a place of dancing, joining in, listening to music, loud music. All of those have haram effects. Therefore, I should adhere to my faith, my religion, and not join in such parties or such celebrations. Another point I want to focus on is the concept of identity. Brothers and sisters, we have our own Islamic identity. Joining into such celebrations might have an effect on that. If it does, we should not join. If me joining these celebrations day in, day out, year in, year out, and that would take away from my Islamic identity, then it becomes, I don't want to say haram, but it could associate itself haram with haram. It could become haram upon me and you by association, by extension, let's say. For example, first thing we have to keep in mind before the example is that our identity is not our property. Our identity is the property of Islam itself. When I say I am a Muslim and I adhere to this faith, there are certain laws, rules, restrictions I must adhere to. If I start joining these celebrations, and in it, day in, day out, year in, year out, these start having an effect on me where they become normalized to me. Well, we know that normalization of an issue turns eventually into a form of belief. We know that Santa Claus doesn't exist, for example. However, if my kid believes in Santa Claus, then he has now believed in something that is not adhering to Islamic religion. Now, that is a small example. However, if day in, day out, we put up the Christmas tree without knowing what it's for, we put the star on top of the Christmas tree without understanding it, we start building up the manger at our homes, for example, or we start going to these celebrations where carols are being sung, music is being played, then it becomes normal. Once it becomes normal, then I no longer see the issue with joining it. When I no longer see the issue, then effects start taking place on me as an individual. Remember our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, do not look at the level of sin you have committed. Don't think of it as a greater sin or a lesser sin. Think of whom you have sinned against. And seeing is that singing and loud music, and music is forbidden in Islam. By me joining in these songs, I have committed a sin. The normalization of that sin becomes an issue upon me. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a narration, he says, the gist of the narration is that there is no such thing as a great sin with repentance, and no such thing as a minor sin, as a minor sin, my apologies, as a minor sin with persistence. Meaning what? Meaning that if an individual commits a major sin, however, this individual seeks repentance from Allah, true repentance, Allah shall forgive. But if an individual persists on a minor sin, then that minor sin accumulates until it becomes greater than the major sin. Therefore, when we join certain celebrations, we're not saying don't celebrate, but we're saying certain celebrations, have a moral, ethical, and ideological effect, or have a negative, or might have in the future negative effect on your identity. These issues grow and grow and grow until the individual becomes absorbed in them, until they become a part of normal life to them. Whereas we can celebrate, but we can celebrate in other in other ways, in Islamic ways, let's say. Things that are normal to us, things that are accepted by us, whether in the Quran or whether in the Sunnah of the Prophet and his family. So let's touch upon that for a bit.